What's going on, everyone? I hope you're doing very well today. So I just wanted to come on here to make a quick video on how to build muscle. I haven't really made any long form content on it, so I decided today's the day. And this is going to be a very valuable video, very just packed filled with knowledge and information. So buckle up and grab a notepad, because if you're looking to build muscle, this is a very valuable presentation that I wish I would have gotten when I was first starting out. So the first thing you need to think about is the principle of specificity. What are you training to do? You're training to look jacked. You're training to look bigger. Let's not kid ourselves. Let's not pretend here. We want to look good. And so to do that, we need to do specifically that. We don't want to be doing deadlifts, and we don't want to be doing what we think is going to make us big because it feels, oh, I feel like this will make us big. We need to be doing what's actually going to make us progress. So we shouldn't be doing sprints. We shouldn't be like jumping around. We shouldn't be doing like weird HIIT workouts, because it's not going to make us look jacked. It's not going to make us bigger. So what we need to do is we need to do specifically what we are trying to do. And so specifically, since we're trying to grow muscle, what you need to think about is, how can I structure my program in a way that's going to build muscle? We want to do this. We don't want to do this. We don't want to do this. We only want to do this. So stop doing things that are counterproductive, and we don't want to be doing deadlifts or other exercises like that, because that's not specifically doing this. Yes, it's very strong, very macho, but it's not going to build muscle as well as, say, a row or a curl. Do these separately. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, well, it's a compound movement, so it'll build more muscle. It won't. It will not build more muscle, because it's not specifically focusing on growing muscle. That is a movement that is meant for getting you stronger. Now, will you grow muscle with it? Yeah, you will. But in all of sports science, that is just the opposite of what you want to be doing. You want to be focused on training individual muscles. A very big part is isolating. We want to do a lot of this, as much as possible. So much so that we should value, a lot of times, machines over free weights. Now, that's very, very controversial. But the reason why I say this is because machines, first of all, they isolate your muscle better. So that goes back to the principle of specificity. Number two is it reduces fatigue, and fatigue is a big deal. A lot of people think, oh, well, you know, I'm trying to get big, and it's a macho thing to lift weights, so I'm just going to do what's hard. And that's cool. It's good to do, first of all, what you enjoy. But if you want to get as jacked as possible, I would not focus on, say, squats over a hack squat. And the reason why is because of fatigue that's generated by this. This uses your spine way more than this. And your spine can be very fatiguing. It will make your whole body very tired. And so let's say you finish a set of squats, you will feel more tired doing bicep curls if you do it right after squats than you would if you did a hack squat, because hack squat literally uses less muscle. Now, does it arguably uses more quad in some senses, but it uses less overall muscle, which means you're going to grow bigger legs, which is what we want. We don't want to just feed our egos. We want to actually get bigger. So that's kind of the basics of the principle of specificity. We're going to be trying to do what will get us as jacked as possible. And so, honestly, more on specificity, but the second point would be technique. Training technique in the gym is basically, in order of importance, it's like this. 1, full ROM. The reason why we want to do full range of motion is because, number 1, it reduces injury risk, but 2, in the scientific literature, we see more growth from the stretched portion of the exercise. So a lot of people, they'll do partials, and the reason they do partials is to feed their ego. You'll notice that a lot, that a lot of advice people give actually comes from ego. So when we're training, we don't want to be feeding our egos, but we want to rather challenge our muscles. That's the goal, to actually challenge our muscles and not cheat and pretend like we're working harder. But aside from feeding our egos, the main reason that we don't want to do partial range of motion is because we'll grow more. And again, that's the goal. We want to grow as much as possible. And the stretch portion will grow you more than just doing partial ranges, because that's what the scientific literature says. So good technique is, number one, full ROM. But number two, well, that's frustrating. Number two, again, isolates the muscle. Because if we're trying to grow biceps, if we want to grow our biceps, what we don't want to be doing is we don't want to be reeling the weight back. We don't want to be using other body parts to take tension off of our bicep. We want to keep the tension on the bicep because we're trying to grow the bicep. So we want to isolate the muscle with good technique and full ROM. We don't want to take tension off of the bicep or off of the tricep. We want to keep the tension on the tricep, and we don't want to take it off because that's the muscle we're trying to grow. So to do anything else is genuinely counterproductive. So we want to have full ROM, isolate the muscle as best as possible. We can do that through machines over free weights, or we can have really, really good technique when we're doing our pull-ups, and we can focus more on using our back rather than using more arms, right? So we want to isolate the muscle, and we want to do things that are stretch. Prone. So if you're doing an exercise that will really, really stretch your muscle, it's going to grow way better. Your calves will actually grow better if you do only partial ROM in the bottom end range of motion. So what that means is at the bottom of the movement, say these are your calves, this is your foot, right? At the bottom range of the motion, you'll grow more doing this than doing this. And that's because the stretch is actually such a big deal, and we really want to make sure that we're stretching out our muscle when we're training. So those are some things to consider there when it comes to training. And so number three, we have intensity. The reason why intensity is important, because if you're not training hard, none of this actually matters. So arguably you could say intensity is first, but if you're intensely doing your math homework, that's not really going to grow your muscle. So what is most important is definitely specificity, and then you could argue intensity over technique. You could. But in my opinion, technique is far more important. But very close is intensity. If you're not training hard, you will never grow. Most people don't train as hard as they think. They wish they did, but they don't. I've seen many beginners, they start training, they're like, yeah, bro, I had so many reps left, or I had no reps left, I couldn't have done any more. And they had at least 5 or 6, at least 5 or 6. Most people stop when it just starts to hurt. But when it starts to hurt is when you actually start to grow. So if you want to grow as fast as possible, it needs to be intense and it needs to be hard. So this is a very important point. Next up, we have volume. Now, let's say you get all of this dialed in. Now, with all of this, you have the perfect training routine for one day. But what do we do over the course of a week or a month? So that's where volume comes in. And so the thing with volume is the general rule of thumb is we want to be hitting each of our muscles 2 times per week. Now, what does hitting them look like? Generally, hitting them is around 3 to 6 sets. And so the reason why we do them twice per week is because it is better for muscle growth to hit it twice per week. Now, that's very basic and it's very beginner. There's a lot you can go into here. But if you're hitting each muscle about 2 times per week, each time being anywhere from, probably higher than 3, but 3 to 6 to 9 sets. It can vary a lot per person, and especially if you're a beginner, I'd say stick to the lower end of that. But 3 to 9 sets per time, 2 times per week, you'll be in generally a good spot. It varies from muscle to muscle, but if you follow all of these points here, you can easily build a solid program if you just kind of fill in the blanks here and think, okay, well, I should put this exercise here probably. Now, as for what actual exercises you should choose, again, we want to remember all of these things overall, but if you say to yourself, yeah, I want to grow my chest, then pick chest exercises. Look something up that kind of fits into all of these, right? If you're doing chest exercises and for muscle growth, you're probably not going to be doing clap push-ups, but you might be doing a dumbbell bench press. Why? Because number one, it's very specific to what you want to do. It's going to grow your chest the best. Number two, you can easily get a bigger stretch because you can go deeper with a dumbbell than, say, a barbell. There's no reason you can't train hard with it, and there's no reason you can't have good volume. So that would be a good exercise for chest. And also it isolates the chest. So obviously there's a lot to this video. It's really hard to get into everything without its own individual. Honestly, each of these things has like 3 or 4 like 20-minute videos about it. But that's just a general underline. It's just a general overview that I would follow if I were new. I would follow this and honestly try to focus on these things, because if I had known these things earlier, I wouldn't have picked a stupid workout plan that some celebrity did, and instead I'd focus on, okay, these are the basics of how to build muscle, this is what I'm going to do. Stop following celebrity workout plans. They don't work, and not even the celebrities are truly doing them like that. Plus there aren't a lot of steroids, so never compare yourself to celebrities. And hopefully you found this video helpful, and interact with this video in however you saw it. So if it's on YouTube, subscribe and like, or if it's on Instagram, feel free to like or follow.